There is a specific kind of silence that fills a house the morning after you decide to stop loving someone who stopped loving you back. It's not empty. It's heavy. I sat at my kitchen table with a cold cup of coffee in my hands, staring at a torn photograph, and for the first time in 3 years, I didn't cry. I just let go. This is the story of that morning. And if you've ever had to choose yourself over someone you loved, you need to hear this. My name doesn't matter. What matters is the version of me that existed for 3 years, the version who apologized for things that weren't her fault, who shrank herself smaller and smaller so someone else could feel bigger, who mistook exhaustion for love, because at least exhaustion meant she was still trying. I used to think love was supposed to hurt a little. That the ache in my chest every time he raised his voice, every time he left without a word, every time he came back like nothing happened, that ache was just the price of loving someone deeply. I told myself real love survives hard things. What I didn't understand was that I was surviving him, not loving him. For 3 years, I built a life around waiting. Waiting for him to change. Waiting for the version of him I fell for to come back. Waiting for an apology that never came, for we need to talk, that always turned into silence. I became so good at waiting that I forgot how to simply live. And the cruelest part, I didn't even notice how small I had become. Somewhere between the laughter of the early days and the numbness of the later ones, I disappeared. Not all at once. A little bit every day. Like a photograph left too long in the sun, fading until you can barely recognize the picture at all. The night before everything changed, I sat alone in our apartment, my apartment now, though it still smelled like him, holding an old photo of us. The one where we were laughing on a beach somewhere, before the fights, before the excuses, before I learned to flinch at the sound of his phone buzzing. I remember staring at that photo for a long time. At the version of me in it. She looked so happy. So certain. So unaware of everything that was coming. And something in me just broke. Not in a dramatic way. Not with screaming or crying. It was quieter than that. It was the kind of breaking that happens when you finally admit the truth you've been running from for years. This isn't love anymore. This hasn't been love for a long time. I tore the photo in half. Not out of anger. Out of necessity. Because I couldn't keep carrying a version of us that no longer existed. I needed to separate who he was from who I still am. I wrote a note that night. Just a few words, scrawled on a scrap of paper with shaking hands. Thank you for the memories. I choose me. I didn't know yet if I meant it. But I needed to see it in my own handwriting. I needed proof that some part of me still believed I was worth choosing. The next morning, I woke up before the sun. I don't know why. Maybe my body knew before my mind did that something had shifted. I made coffee, the same brand I'd been drinking for years, the mug he used to tease me about, because it was too big, too plain, too unromantic, for someone who was supposedly the love of his life. I held it in both hands and walked to the window. The sky was doing that thing it does right before the sun rises, that soft, burning orange that makes you believe, just for a moment, that anything is possible. That endings can be beginnings. That mornings can be mercy. I sat down at my table. The torn photograph was still there from the night before. The note was still there too. And I opened my journal, the one I'd bought months earlier and never used, because I told myself I didn't have anything worth writing down. I picked up my pen, and for the first time in years, I wrote something just for me. Today, I choose peace. 4 words. But they felt like the heaviest, most important words I had ever written. Heavier than any apology I'd ever given him. Heavier than any promise I'd ever made to stay. Because choosing peace meant admitting that loving him had never been peaceful. It meant admitting that the butterflies I used to call passion were actually anxiety. That the highs and lows I called real love were actually a cycle of harm I had convinced myself to endure. Choosing peace meant choosing myself. And choosing myself, after years of choosing him, felt like learning to walk again after forgetting I even had legs. Later that morning, I put on my sweater, the same soft, oversized one I always reached for on hard days, and I walked outside. Down the path near the cliffs, where the ocean meets the sky and the whole world seems to exhale. I didn't walk away from him that morning. I had already done that weeks before, in the quiet decisions no one sees: the decision to stop answering at midnight, the decision to stop explaining myself, the decision to stop shrinking. That morning, I walked toward something instead. I didn't know what. Maybe just toward a version of myself I hadn't seen in years. Maybe toward a life that finally belonged to me again. The wind was cold, but it didn't feel like loss. It felt like clearing. Like the world was making room for something new inside me. I thought about all the nights I'd spent begging silently for him to love me the way I loved him. And I realized, standing there with the sun rising over the water, that I had been begging the wrong person all along. The one I needed to fight for wasn't him. It was me. People talk about letting go, like it's a single moment, like one day you just wake up and the pain is gone, and you skip off into a sunset with a smile on your face. That's not what it is. Not really. Letting go isn't the absence of pain. It's choosing yourself in spite of it. It's making coffee and drinking it slowly, even when your hands still shake. It's writing 4 honest words in a journal even when your heart still aches for someone who hurt you. It's tearing a photograph, not because the memories weren't real, but because you finally understand that memories aren't a reason to stay somewhere that costs you your peace. Letting go is not about hating the person who hurt you. It's about loving yourself enough to stop returning to what breaks you. That morning didn't erase 3 years of pain. It didn't undo the nights I cried myself to sleep, or the mornings I woke up already exhausted. But it was the beginning. The first honest breath in a very long time. And if you are sitting somewhere right now in your own kitchen, holding your own cold cup of coffee, staring at your own torn photograph, I want you to know something. You are allowed to choose yourself. Even if you loved them. Even if it still hurts. Even if the world tells you love should be enough to keep you there. Love should never cost you your peace. And the morning you finally understand that is the morning everything begins to change. If this story touched something in you, if you have ever had to walk away from someone you loved in order to find your way back to yourself, I want to hear about it. Tell me in the comments, what was your morning? What was the moment you finally chose peace? If this video moved you even a little, please hit subscribe. Stories like this one are shared here every week, real, raw, emotional journeys about heartbreak, healing, and finding your way back to yourself. And if you know someone who needs to hear this today, someone quietly holding on to a love that no longer serves them, share this video with them. It might be exactly the reminder they need. Because sometimes the bravest thing we ever do isn't holding on. It's finally letting go.